Hello and welcome to the Dune Minute Podcast, your place to dive deep, minute by minute, into the cinematic adaptation of Frank Herbert's World of Dune. I'm one of your hosts, John.
And I'm Zach.
And we are back once again with our guest Alicia from the Lorehounds, joining us from very far away for another episode, and we're here to just dive right back on in.
It's a hell of a trip.
Thank you for having
every
me.
single day.
Yeah, it's really impressive that you're flying
I literally
across the
fly
Atlantic
to their
every day.
house.
Yeah, every day.
It's terrible for the environment, but
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Today we are talking about minute 63 through 64 of Dune Part 2. And we left off yesterday with the group of Fremen heading south on top of Shai-Hulud's back. We got a brief glimpse of Jessica inside the palanquin, and a Fremen got up to, turn towards the palanquin, and we're getting into that conversation today. Mm-hmm. Jessica's pointing out the obvious. These storms look bad.
she just wants you to remember she's a noob.
Yeah. No, she's quite unfamiliar with the desert, even though she is now a Fremen Reverend Mother.
She's on the fast track to it.
Cultural immersion program.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We talked earlier about a study abroad, and then Paul, found his way in. Jessica just transferred credits from another school, and it's enough, apparently. But yeah, the Fremen man that's standing outside the palanquin in Chakobsa says, "They're the guardians of the south. It's a hard crossing, but Shai-Hulud is strong." And then he takes a very thin piece of fabric and closes it over the opening of the palanquin. Mm-hmm. And let's just hope that fabric holds up through the Coriolis storms, which, as we talked about in our coverage of part 1, are not calm storms.
No.
I was just going to say, should Jessica feel insulted because they only wrap her up like that as opposed to everyone else because she's a Reverend Mother. And the last one they did it, she was a very old woman. And now they're like, oh, but you were a very fragile white woman.
I would probably feel like 30% insulted, but the rest would be like, okay, I'm cool. I'm glad I'm in this little pod. That's fine.
Yeah, she at least has like the outer shell of the pod to prevent, her from getting hit by stuff. Because remember, very recently she had gone through another one of these storms in an ornithopter, and she had remained conscious the whole time. Her son hadn't.
Yeah.
So she saw just how bad these storms can be. So I'm sure this is maybe a little better for her, if anything, just because she's already on the ground. So if something happens, she doesn't then have to fall several thousand meters to the ground through a storm. So bright sides to everything.
I love the personification of them as guardians of the South because indeed this is why the Harkonnens never bother looking down there. Like everyone just accepts, oh, nobody could live down there because of these storms, which obviously once they get to the other side, it's like a belt of storms. Don't they have satellites?
No. So it's pretty, I think it's spelled out in the books eventually. I don't think it's been spelled out yet, but the Fremen pay the guild in Spice to not have satellites on the southern part, because that is truly where their numbers are. Like there's a lot of Fremen in the north, yes. There's a lot more in the south.
Millions in the south.
And to the guild just says, and this is something I hope they bring up in the third movie, the guild of it all and everything, and the role they play in all these machinations. But indeed, they're just like lying to the Harkonnens. They're just like, nah, nobody down there. Don't worry about it.
Well, I mean, they can get past it saying, we don't see anything down there. Because that's technically true.
Yeah.
If they were put against the truth sayer, they would be telling the truth. We don't see anything because they don't have satellites.
Yeah, you bring up a good point of how they're going to handle it in part 3, because that's one of the big revelations at the end of the book, is that Paul discovers, the nature of the guild and everything, and we have none of that here. In fact,
it's the opposite.
The revelation is spoiled for us in the third minute of the movie or whatever. maybe it's like the 6th or the 7th, where Paul's film book talks about how spice is necessary for the guild to travel.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how that whole dynamic is also played out in part 3 or Messiah or whatever they're calling it.
My money's on it's not even going to be a thing. They're not even going to bring it up. They're going to focus on the relationship with the Bene Gesserit and what Paul's doing around. The guild will be a minor part of the third one, which stinks.
Yeah. If it's going to become an intergalactic jihad, then the guild has to be involved in some way to travel.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think they will be. It's just like I think they're going to be a kind of a minor player versus like the major one that they are in the book.
Right.
We may get Edric, maybe.
No, there's no way they don't include Edric.
We'll see.
If they don't include Edric, I'm fucking losing my
They
shit.
didn't include Through Fear in this movie. So,
Yeah, and okay, I have
Don't
thoughts
do
about
this to
that
me,
in the
Zach.
next minute.
Fuck you.
In the next minute,
Okay.
I have more thoughts about the fact that Hawat's not included.
yeah. Okay. All right. We'll get there.
Fuck you, Zach.
But
Don't do this
here-
to me.
okay.
Don't put that out there.
My thought here, though, is that it's ironic. This is a moment, we're referring to Jessica projecting more strength in the last minute. But here we see she's alone. She's in a space where she can't be seen. And you see her looking a bit fearful, which is ironic because she has the litany against fear written across her face. But then, yeah, that moment where we see in the womb and Aaliyah puts her little hand on the womb to calm her mother. And then you're like, that's
sweet.
like, I don't think she's controlling her, but I think she is the one in charge in a way.
I don't think she's necessarily putting her hand on the womb to confront or to comfort her mother, because it's after there's a little bit of a shake from Shai-Hulud hitting something. It's almost like she's kind of like holding herself like a oh shit kind of moment, because she doesn't have the oh shit
interpret
handle
it
in
my
the car.
way.
Yeah.
I do like the Alia's comforting her mother stance on it though. I don't have an opinion.
I didn't read it that way, but I can see that being a possible little, because we've seen how much of the relationship between Jessica and Alia has been growing. So,
And if you want to think about it, like the shot, like okay, the worm jostles and Jessica gets tossed around, then cut to the baby inside going, "Whoa!" That would be almost like a laugh line. You know, and that feels out of place with the seriousness that is going on here.
yeah.
But I think it's, I mean, the way I interpreted it is the fact that Alia is an abomination. And sorry, yeah, like I said in the previous episodes, I'm going to pronounce it both ways as it comes out of my mouth. So we don't get to see that because they don't want to do the Renesmee thing with the talking baby, which fair, I understand. So how do you communicate that while they're still in the womb, where we're getting this sense like of that she's making Jessica more calm in general? You know, we were complaining about Stressica, as you guys put it in the first movie. And here she's more centered and projecting more confidence. What's the difference? Well, the difference is that she's pregnant, and now that she's pregnant with a prescient child. And then, so I saw that moment, she reaches out and like kind of calms her mother, who was just shown looking fearful about the storm. It's like, who's parenting whom here?
Yeah. No, I like that read. I like it.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way, but now that you bring it up, it definitely makes a little bit more sense. Because to me, I just read it as there's a bump and this baby's like looking for an oh shit handle, and she doesn't have anything to hold on to. So, see, and this is why I like having guests on the podcast, because y'all bring stuff to us that we would have just made a joke about.
A dumb joke.
Moved on with.
So I want to talk about these storms for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about weather recently, as I'm learning. This, and I don't have answers to this, but I want to bring this up. So the weather systems on Arrakis are such that they have a band of storms that seems to be constant If they've always been a barrier from people going from north to south, these seems like this would be like a constant band of storms around the equator, and they attribute them to the Coriolis effect. So there's something about Arrakis is inherently a 180 to how things work on Earth, because the Coriolis effect on Earth does the exact opposite effect here. We have no storms at the equator. Everything either moves north and south, like hurricanes in the oceans. They do not cross the equator.
Yep.
But it got me thinking. I was like, that's a really interesting little like bit of physics that Frank Herbert decided to introduce to this story. And so I was looking around yesterday, and I found this website. I can't even remember when it was published, but there was a group of people much smarter than me. I think like PhD level in meteorology and geography and stuff like that. But they wrote an article and built a website where you can go see the weather patterns, and they did like extensive modeling on the weather patterns of Arrakis.
Yeah.
And it's like a 3D model. You can see the storms and how it how the wind flows over the different topography of the planet, and it's really, really, really cool. And I'll put those links in the show notes for today's episode. But it's a fascinating article too. John, did you get a chance to read through it?
Yeah. Well, in my lay understanding of how weather works, attempted to read through it, and the way that they talked about like using the maps that Frank had given us of Arrakis, and trying to map it as close to our real world like weather prediction modeling systems and everything, found that yes, Arrakis is a brutal planet to live on. It is habitable, but highly inhospitable.
Yeah, I like that line from the article.
Yeah, so like it is pretty good on Frank to, really lean into everything that he knew about ecology and different, geographic systems to come up with a world that could realistically exist. According to scientific models and everything that we have now. Yeah. Now, you said that you didn't know when this was published. It was published October 26, 2021 on theconversation.com.
Okay.
And like you said, I'll make sure that that's in the show notes in the description for everything as well, because it is a really cool, if anything, a really cool 3D render of an interactable Arrakis that you can go to, and you can, Google Earth it basically in terms of watching how the weather patterns and everything work, especially the stuff around the poles. And I'm gonna plug something that Dune Navigator Martin did recently, which was a study on whether or not there was water and ice in the polar regions as well, because this article seems to really indicate that the polar regions during their respective winters would actually seemingly get pretty fucking cold.
Yeah, and that was like the biggest departure that I saw from it. They said that this, according to their models, of course, so take it for what you will, but they said that it would not always be hot, arid, and dry. Hot, arid, and dry, like 100% of the time. There would be massive swings in like where the freezing temperatures would be. So like Arakeen is depicted as kind of in the northern, like more towards the pole than it is the equator.
Yeah.
So like Arakeen would experience really, really big temperature fluctuations from summer to winter. So the still suits would not only have to keep heat or keep you alive in the heat, but they'd also have to keep you alive in the cold. So it's a very big difference, and we don't get any of that in the books. We don't get any of the cold side of this.
Now, granted, this is also with Earth models and everything, so take it with as much of a grain of salt as you want to. But clearly, this was enough for this group of of scientists to be interested in like diving into, okay, could this be practically modeled? And it was. So it's a really cool article.
Yeah. And that's what you call hard sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly.
We love that though.
Alicia, you'll be interested in this one too because they did the same thing for the Wheel of Time world.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
they did. So we'll make sure you
check
get
it
the
out.
link to it. Yeah.
SaveWatt.com. Just saying. If you haven't signed the petition, we're trying to get to, well, hopefully it'll be well over 100K by the time this comes out.
Okay. Bring the show back. Got to bring it back.
Yeah, Sony's free to shop it around. So.
Okay, good. Well, I'm hopeful. Okay, so I just want to talk. I wanted to nerd out on the weather for a little bit.
Yeah. I love the shots of that storm and the worm entering the storm. Like, we get it from the side, we get it from above, just from a shot composition perspective. It's monochrome, of course, but the different textures.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous to look at, and it just shows, like, yeah, Jessica, you're right. That's freaking terrifying, that wall of storm.
Now, and this worm looks like it's riding pretty low in the sand. Did y'all pick up on that at all?
It definitely seemed like the front of it was still buried, but then like the top of the body was just kind of peeking out of the sand.
Okay.
So once again, going back to, I think what Alicia was saying last episode, show us how they're doing it. Show us how they're getting it. The palanquin and all of these people on and off the worm. Yeah. Damn it.
For that, like, the fact that it's riding low makes sense to me, because the worm would obviously love to be under the sand, but they're holding open, like the chunks of the worm's armor, so it can't go under. So it's going into a storm, so it's gonna go as low as possible without submerging the part that's exposed.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, Frank thought of everything, didn't he?
The things that Frank didn't think of, it's clearly
Someone else did.
Film crew definitely thought of a lot. So, but the loud chaos of the storms comes to a very sudden stop. We've left explosions and we're back to whispers.
Yes.
It is a dark, quiet,
peaceful
evening, very peaceful.
A very peaceful evening.
There's a little bird sound, going on.
Yeah, the air is calm. The mountains, a really pretty mountainscape in the background.
Yeah, we're looking at some Harkonnen architecture and everything, and
nice.
then surprise explosions. Boom! We're back to explosions right from the whispers again, baby.
So I think we're all in agreement. Those bird sounds we heard were the Fremen calling to each other.
So
to detonate, right?
So, I found an inconsistency between streaming platforms.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you and I have been watching this on the Blu-ray, right? But last night I was laying in bed, couldn't fall asleep, so I was like, "Fuck it, I'll put on Dune."
As you do.
As I do. And I was streaming it on my purchase that I made on Apple TV.
Okay.
Because I have a copy there as well, because I like Dune. Don't at me. It was for our original episodes for part one.
I'm with you.
Before we bought the Blu-ray. The subtitles on the Blu-ray say bird sounds. The subtitles on Apple TV say Stilgar makes bird sounds.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a very interesting distinction, and I feel like that's a little important for some context, but also it would make sense and stand to reason that Stilgar would be the one making those noises, because we've heard him do it several times before already in the movie. It was at the start. So we know Stilgar was there for the explosion of the Spice Depot.
I'm just wondering, why would there even be a discrepancy in subtitles?
I don't know.
It's weird.
I'm wondering the big boom that they make happen. And of course, they say we lost 80% of our last crop. Is this, what's the what's the goal of the Fremen with this? Are they trying to chase the Harkonnens off of Arrakis? Do they think this that might work.
So in the cafeteria scene in part 2, Paul explicitly lays out his plan to disrupt spice production in order to get to the Emperor.
So it's to like draw the Emperor in.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that seems to be his plan, because throughout the minutes before this, I want to say it was our episodes from 2 weeks ago, we saw Paul and the Fremen attacking more of the harvesters with, missiles and laser guns and everything. And we saw more of the, destruction on the ground. So it stands to reason that if Paul and the Fedaykin can do enough to not let the Harkonnens meet their quotas, then Dad's gonna have to come home and ask for some answers. Right? And then at that point, that's where Paul would want to be able to confront the Emperor about his father's death.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, yeah. I just thought Paul's a little rascal. He's a troublemaker. That's why he's likes doing it.
You little rascal.
Little desert mouse.
Yeah. So I will say that going frame by frame through this with the Blu-ray, no laser gun or projectile that I could see. This clearly came from the inside. They broke in to plant bombs, I guess.
I will say too, watching from the Blu-ray, if you have a good HDR display,
Good explosion.
Beautiful.
All right.
Beautiful.
I was watching on my phone, so.
No. I'm just kidding. God damn it.
That's how I watch every minute, just on my phone, like as I'm doing other things, and I just dictate my notes. So.
Gross.
Gross.
I know you're kidding, but goddamn, that sounds awful. That's like some last resort Dune Minute podcast note taking right there.
I noticed, so this time I went to watch it, and it's normally on HBO Max, right? But it was on Netflix this time, and I noticed it was I guess I don't have the maximum Netflix because it got real expensive. So I noticed a degradation in quality versus the last time I watched it. It's a shame.
Oh, no.
It was a mere HD. That could just
how
be
dare
here.
they?
It could just be a thing here where they
could be a
rent it out for a while to Netflix.
Fair
EU
enough.
thing.
It said recently added, so yeah. But I went to HBO and I was like, what the?
So the whole place goes up. That's the point of the story. Whole place goes up, and about 2 seconds later, alarms start to blare.
Yep.
And we start to see a bunch of goons again. We get some more goons around.
It's been a while since we've had some gooning.
We've not had a lot of gooning recently, and they're scrambling. These goons are scrambling. They're trying to get to their ornithopters as quickly as they possibly can, and we see Raban walking through, carrying a whip. So we get a close up on his whip at the hip first, his whip hip.
Yep.
And he's screaming, how much? And then there's some actuary goon behind him.
Attendant.
Yeah, he's
whatever.
An accountant.
Minion.
Bean counter.
Spice counter. Space bean counter.
Yeah.
Spice Minion.
Yeah, exactly. He titled Commander in the subtitles, so he does have some rank, so give some respect to his
He's
name.
still a nerd.
Yeah. And he starts to say, we lost 80% of our last crop. And then he waits for a second. He goes, my lord, what?
You have your notes wrong. It is my Lord Rabin, end of minute.
Yeah.
The 80% of our last crop is the start of the next minute.
Oh, shit,
No,
you're right.
I have it. The minute that was shared with me, it said 80% of our last crop in this
And
one.
then my Lord Rabin, because then he
Yeah,
goes, I'm
and then
gonna
it starts,
Trim this
yeah.
out. But
Nope, I have my notes wrong. Fuck.
yes.
Yeah, we lost 80% of our last crop. My Lord Rabin, and then our minute stops.
Okay, I'm leaving that in. Since you were wrong, I'm leaving it in.
Fuck you. I'm editing this episode.
So the commander says we lost 80% of our last crop. ... then my Lord Rabin, and that is exactly where it cuts off.
Yeah.
So we get Rabin back, Rabban.
Rabin.
We get Rabin back, and I'm good to see him. We love some Rabin minutes.
Yeah. They're few and far between, but
I like him as an antagonist.
I'm going to talk about, I might say something that you consider a hot take in the next minute then about him.
All right. Well, I guess you'll have to come back for tomorrow's episode as we wrap this week up for Alicia's hot take.
Again, no book notes here. Anything else from Art and Soul or anything else?
Nothing from the encyclopedia, nothing from Art and Soul. We will be back tomorrow with those notes.
Okay.
In our last episode of the Dune Minute for this week.
All right. Anything else on your side, Alicia?
Just to switch it up, I already said Dune, Woolshift Dust, Murderbot, the Lore Hounds on the Star Wars Canon Timeline podcast. We're talking about the High Republic. Space vibes.
Nice. That's
the good stuff. Yeah. That's the good stuff. All right. Well, the Dune Minute can be found online in two different places. You can find us on Blue Sky, where we're most active. It's mostly just me shit posting with the rest of everyone else. At duneminute.com, and you can email duneminute@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with us that way. All of the Lorehounds contact is also available in the episode description, so feel free to go check out their many shows. And we'll be back tomorrow with our last episode of the week.
All right. See you then.
See you.
Bye.